everyone. For Channel 6 TV Community Focus, I'm Dennis George. For several months now, you've been hearing on the radio, seeing on TV, and reading on the computer and the newspapers all the information about the 2016 presidential election. Things are going to be a little bit different in Kentucky this year. Instead of Republicans going to the polls in May to vote in a typical primary, on March 5th, they will be caucusing, just like they do in a lot of other states. And we have with us today 3 members of the local Republican Party. To my left, Jody George. To my right, Sonia Clark and Steve Downs. And we're here today to inform you about the caucus, how it works, and how it will affect everyone. And thank you to all of you all for joining us to pass along some information.
Thank you, Dennis.
Glad to be here.
All right. Jody, I think we were talking earlier, in 1984 there was some type of caucus in Kentucky, but this is the first time that it will be held early enough for the voice of Kentuckians to be heard in the Republican presidential contest.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is the first time that Kentucky is relevant. Super Tuesday is March 1st. You have about 11, 12 states, most of them southern states, that will be part of that caucus or that primary. And then Super Tuesday 2 happens March 15th. So we're right in between. Tennessee is part of Super Tuesday 1. Ohio's part of Super Tuesday 2. We're right in the middle geographically, and the votes and what happens is very relevant.
In the past, when Democrats and Republicans alike voted in the May primary, you said relevant this time, but in the past, the votes in Kentucky normally didn't matter because the contests were pretty much wrapped up by a candidate in each party. So this, as you said, it does have a little bit more impact.
Correct.
Of course, Kentucky's native son, Rand Paul, in my mind, was kind of an instigator or wanted the caucus because it allows him to be on the ballot in May as a senatorial candidate, but he can participate in the caucus. And if Kentucky had not gone to this caucus format, he could not have appeared on a May ballot for president and Senate as under Kentucky law. Is that pretty accurate?
That is accurate. The party gathered and voted on if this was going to happen. So it was a vote, the majority vote, and yes, that's exactly correct.
What has gone into preparing, and what have you all learned? And I guess we'll start with you, Jody. What have you learned about the process? Because when I think of caucuses, I think of Iowa and some other states where people are joined in a room hollering and screaming at one another. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I assume it won't go that way, but what have you learned about the system?
This is, again, I think the timing is most important to focus on that. We're March 5th. Mm-hmm. It is a process that we are going to be a part of, that we usually watch everybody else participate in the excitement. We're now a part of it. I think our caucus is unique because we will allow the voter to have a private ballot. And that ballot is given to the voter when they sign in, like they would any other election. And there will be an area in the room for a cubicle or a private vote for those that want to have that type of privacy, which is unique. Right. And I'm glad that we're doing it that way.
And I know in the past, you know, when you look at maps of the state, and I guess, you know, a couple different things come to mind. You know, the last governor's race, when you look at the one county outside most of the urban areas that were, you know, for Jack Conway, you know, there's Marion County. Mm-hmm. Sitting there. Ed Whitfield runs. I think everything was a Republican county except Marion. It sits right there as a Democratic county. But I think you guys as Republicans, the party has made a lot of progress in the last decade or so, and if you want to talk about your numbers a little bit.
Sure. We are, the registration is about 2,300, 2,366 to be exact. I believe that since I've been here, and that's been about 23 years, I think when I arrived, or when I actually registered, there were 500. So yes, we have increased in the years. It's exciting. It's been slow process, but we're at a great place right now with the caucus, and the caucus too is an excitement that could attract more.
Since you said you came here 23 years ago and registered as a Republican, so did you have to do some convincing to Dr. David or Dr. Salem to join you, or did they?
No.
Okay.
No, I had nothing to do with their decisions of what they do with their registration.
But you were a split household for a while?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we were.
Okay.
Yes, we were.
So you kind of worked on Dr. David. I'm going to have to give you a little bit of credit for that.
I don't know if the term is worked on.
Okay. Sonia, you're doing, I guess, a lot of work on what is going to exactly take place on March the 5th. First of all, your location is?
Yeah, so we're going to be at the library on Main Street, and so we will it'll be in the same room that we do all of the other voting if you voted at the library before. We will have you come in and bring your ID with you. You must bring your ID in order to vote, so please make sure that when you come to join us and vote that day that you have your identification with you. As Jody already stated, we will give you a ballot when you come in. Now if you have, and Steve's going to talk a little bit more about the absentee ballot, but if you are an absentee ballot, you can still come and ask questions and be part of it, and you can turn in your absentee ballot that day if you would like to. We'll have privacy screens available if you want to vote and not have everybody see what your vote is going to be, and there will be an actual ballot box that you will drop your ballot in at that day, and we will count the ballots at the end of the day at 4 o'clock when we're wrapping up.
Okay, but this is a little bit different from going to a polling place where you just walk in, mark your ballot, run a computer scan on it, and walk out. This is almost an informational meeting if you don't have your mind made up, or you assume most people do. But I think we were talking earlier, in years past, you could poll next to the polling places, and you'd see signs on the doors and people wanting to hand you things as you walked in.
Like the good old days.
In some ways, some of us, we do refer to it that way. But this is going to be a little bit of a different process in that candidates can have representatives there who will educate you up until the time you mark your ballot. Who wants to talk about that, Sonia?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. We have 11 candidates that are Republicans that are going to be running, and each candidate can send up to 3 representatives to each of the locations. So we know that, for example, if Jeb Bush wanted to send representatives here to Marion County, and you had questions around where they stand, you can come and you can ask questions. There will be representatives from the candidates there. Senator Jimmy Higdon is also going to join us and drop in and be able to answer any questions that you may have if your mind is not made up. But yeah, it is a very informational and in a way informal and formal at the same time, because it is a conversation that we're going to have if you have questions that need to be answered.
Okay. You'll come in, be handed a ballot. What type of, we've talked about participation. And in the past, with Kentucky's election being in May and the candidates already pretty much been selected and having enough votes before they get to the convention, what type of turnout, Jody, do you expect, or would you like to have, and you would be clapping your hands and saying it was a success?
I think 30% is a pretty good start. The general election, Republicans, the turnout was about 26%, and then the last primary was more like 12, 13%. So yes, we would love to have 30%.
We'd love to have 100%.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But when you're looking at some of the equations and anticipation of what to prepare, you know what, 30% is hopefully very realistic.
If that's more than you would get in a general election, that's a pretty good turnout for you then.
Right.
All right, Sonia, you'll be there on March 5th at 10 o'clock, so people can show up from 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Are there other discussions that go on, or is it just pretty much walk in? From your experience, I guess this is new territory for everyone.
Right.
Is it a thing you walk in, and as you would do if you went to what we would call a typical polling place, identify yourself, show ID, go in and vote, or do you anticipate a lot of people kind of hanging around? What do you anticipate with something like this?
So the way that the room is going to be set up, just so you kind of can get a visual, is you're going to walk in, you're going to give your ID, you're going to get your ballot, but before the voting area, there are going to be these informational people there that represent the different candidates. And so there should be people hanging around. There should be discussion. There should be conversation, especially if there are any questions in your mind about who you want to vote for. So we absolutely, expect that people will be hanging around, that there will be questions, that there will be conversation. And then once you're ready to vote, there will be a designated area that you can go, and it'll be kind of, I'm not going to call it, the quiet zone, but it'll be like the quiet zone where, you sit down at a table or you sit down at a privacy screen, you can fill out the ballot, and it'll be a manual ballot, so it's not going to be the electronic ballot that you're used to seeing in many polling places. It'll be a manual ballot, and then you can make your decision, your choice. You put your vote in the ballot box, and then you can either, continue the conversation or you can leave.
Who's responsible afterwards for counting the votes? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm the chair of the Republican Caucus for Kentucky, for the Marion County area. So I will be responsible with Steve, the two of us. This is my co-chair, Steve Downs.
I'm practicing my counting already.
Yes. And we will be counting, and we will be sending the information to the Republican Party. Okay,
but I think you had mentioned earlier before we came on, can representatives, is there a, we talked about the old smoke-filled rooms and stuffing ballot boxes. Is there a check and balance from the candidates that watch this process as you all count them, or you all just take and count them and go that route? How does that work?
Well, sorry.
There will be, just like with anything else, there will be different secure measures that are placed on the box, as well as those people that will be counting. That through the training, that kind of information is communicated, and then there's after 4 o'clock, what is actually communicated to the RPK is done under a certain process as well.
So they have it all lined out for how things get done.
Absolutely.
Typically we are used to voting on a Tuesday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I guess, Jody, I want to direct this one to you first. As you go to a Saturday, and instead of 12 hours, you've got about 6 hours, and it's on a Saturday. But I guess in the thought process, you feel like that does not hamper people coming out to vote?
You know what, there are several challenges with this caucus idea. One is that there's one location, not the typical precincts. So first of all, some people will have to drive further than other people, but with information you can prepare, and that preparation brings you to a different way of doing. 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock on a Saturday, as long as people know, the fact that it's different will kind of shake some things up. But again, our goal is to inform and to make sure everybody can prepare. And if you cannot prepare or be there to vote, then the absentee balloting the information is very important
for that. So
right.
And you led right into the question. So you should be sitting in this seat. Steve, let's talk about that a little bit, because during the election process, in normal situations, there are certain stipulations on who can vote absentee. Talk about that for people who, like you, maybe you have to farm that whole day and can't get out of the field to come, or they're out of town. What's the process to vote absentee in the Republican caucus on March 5th?
All right, we've actually got a list here. the voter will be absent from the county the day of the caucus. If you're not in the county, you can vote absentee. Does that make sense? If the county you're in doesn't have a caucus, like if, I don't know if any of the surrounding counties don't, they
Actually,
can
you know
come
what?
here.
There are several different locations. We are not one of them. That there are 4 different.
Like a regional caucus?
Correct.
Yeah.
A regional.
Did I read there's like 7 counties that did not have, or not having their own county caucus,
Correct.
like 113 out of the
Right.
120
Right.
counties, I think. Okay, so
if your county doesn't have a caucus, you can do an absentee ballot. Because, like I say, you don't have a caucus to go to. If you're an active duty member of the armed services, of course, if you're serving the country, we absolutely want you to have the right to vote. So, just like a general election, you're entitled to absentee ballot. If you're 70 years old, if you feel like, you know, it's a hardship to get out, or if you just say, I would prefer absentee vote, being 70 years old, that's automatic eligibility for absentee ballot. So that opens up a lot for that. Medical conditions or disabilities. You know, if something's wrong, it's a hardship, you're eligible. Healthcare facility, you know, if you're in the nursing home, obviously you're not going to be able to get out very easily. So that makes you eligible for absentee. If you're a student, you know, if you're up to UK or Eastern or U of L, not going to be home that weekend, you're absolutely eligible for absentee ballot. They want to make this as open and accessible as we can to everyone. And it is, the absentee ballot is available on a download. The rpkcaucus.com until February 19th. And it's, just fill it out, to mail it in. Address is right there. It's actually not mailed to us, but the Republican Party of Kentucky will get the absentee ballots. So we won't have any absentee ballots to count as far as I know.
is there any way, because basically I would go online, fill out the information, they would send me an absentee ballot, and I would forward it on to the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, the Republican Party.
And I guess, maybe I think differently, but is there again a check and balance in that type situation to keep?
So there are 2 addresses. I think you can either walk it in person, or you send it to that
mail
address. The rpk.com or rpkcaucus.com is a valuable resource for everyone if they have access to a computer to go to that website, and it walks you through every little detail. Regarding checks and balances, of course, there are measures, just like if you would download or send anything via the internet. They have the same kind of things, protections, etc. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to be somebody there opening them up as they come in and throw that one in that box. You know, it's going to be a controlled environment.
Okay, so in this situation, they have to request it by February? Is that what you said?
19th.
They have to request it? RPK Caucus? Is that what?
.com, or call the RPK, Republican Party of Kentucky, or you could call, we'll have the dates and any information that we can provide at the county clerk's office is our intention, so that people are able to see with their deadlines and any information regarding submitting their application.
Okay.
The absentee balloting is very similar to normal circumstances
Right.
that allow you to absentee ballot.
The one that I always found interesting when you would apply through the clerk's office was if you were incarcerated. I think you could still get an absentee ballot, I
Wow.
guess. I think that was that. Yeah, you know, so I mean, if you were incarcerated,
You had your trial to get it.
yeah, you could still, you may, if you were a felon, I guess you may have an issue with that, but I always found that to be, somewhat interesting. And I guess one thing that we should point out is that this caucus is only for 2016 presidential election.
Yes.
That Republicans will still go to the polls in May to vote for their candidates for U.S. Senate as well as state representative. And there are 2 Republicans who have filed to run against Terry Mills, one from LaRue County, one from Greene. They will be on the ballot in May, so the Republicans basically are going to vote twice in about a 3-month period. One other thing that we had talked about, the cost of the caucus is being borne by the Republican Party, is taking care of it through Rand Paul, and I understand all candidates who wanted to be on the ballot per se had to also kick in money to is it like a $7,500 per candidate fee that I think I had seen to be a part of the process. Can you talk about that for a minute and how that all has come down?
To allow Senator Paul to be on 2 ballots, it was important for the state to have a caucus, and that's really as simple as it is. Regarding the cost, I do not know what it costs a candidate, but I do know that Senator Paul has assumed most of the expense, if not all the expense, in order to have it. That was part of the requirements when we voted on this.
And there's no additional cost to the county for doing it in this way then?
None.
And I understand that the decision to hold a primary election or a caucus is voted on a regular basis. And with or without a Rand Paul as a candidate, do you see moving forward, and with the caucus being in March rather than the primary in May, that this will provide some impetus for more caucuses going forward?
Well, I think, do you know what, the results and how this works might, again, it's one of those situations that until we go through the process and see how it impacts the party, and we have the option, and that's the most important.
A really good learning experience.
Right.
I've never voted in a caucus before, and I don't know if anybody here has, so it's going to be something different, and like I say, all over the state. I guess it'll see how the turnout comes out for it, you know, what kind of participation you get. I'm sure that's going to play a factor in it too.
All right, Sonia, would you look at this as a primary election being held on one day for fewer hours almost? Because it's still going to be the same process. You're going to walk in and check off your ballot. Does that mean that a caucus is still the same type of election that we would have in a normal type situation?
Absolutely. And I think that the point that it is in March and that Kentucky is so relevant in the way that the rest of the country is going to see how we vote this time is absolutely, you know, what is going to determine whether we have it again, as well as participation. But yeah.
All right, do you anticipate any candidates coming between Super Tuesday 1 and Super Tuesday 2?
That's a good question. It was discussed in May that typically the candidates travel the Super Tuesdays, big caucuses. We're right in the path.
Kind of have to go through Kentucky from here to Tennessee to
So,
Ohio.
they may show up. You know, they may be here, right? Yeah.
Whether they come or not, it's much more likely that it's available to them, and they can see a benefit for coming. That's the thing of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we missed anything? Have I not asked the questions that allows you all to get any more information out that you want the public to know about?
Well, I'd just like to say that we have several volunteers. So this is all done by volunteers here in Kentucky. And I have a good, strong list of volunteers. But if there's anybody else who's interested in being part of this historic activity for our county and for our state, then please, do get in touch with myself or with Jody or, through the station, and we'd be happy to sign you up. And we've got a couple more days to get some additional volunteers signed up and trained. So
we could probably provide Gary with some phone numbers that he can post on it.
If you can't get there for the actual day of the caucus, like I say, we've got a wide array of opportunities for the absentee ballot, and I'm sure they can contact any one of us, and if you can't find it on your own, we'll certainly make sure they get the
information,
absentee ballot to them.
Yep.
Well, it'll be interesting just to see how it works, and of course the first time I guess there's all that uncertainty and anticipation as to, gosh, is 10%, 20, how's it going to work? But it will be an interesting day to wake up on March the 6th and look back and say, yes, it worked the way we thought it might.
And that we experienced a caucus for the
Yeah.
first time.
Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate all of you being here with us today. Again, it's March the 5th from 10 until 4 at the Marion County Public Library on Main Street. Republicans in Marion County can cast their ballots for the 2016 presidential primary. For Channel 6 TV Community Focus, I'm Dennis George.